In this video, I'll be completing this bear. The bear was created using a jacket from a charity shop, and in this video I finished the head and stuffed the body, basically put it all together. So I'm finally ready to start sewing the head. I've got the first two seams ready to sew. So I was actually going to sew this seam, but that's wrong. I need to sew this bit here, which is the chin, I think it's the chin, down to the neck. So she overcast first and then stitched it, and then she undid the overcasting. So I'm going to be a bit naughty basically and just have a crack and not bother with the overcasting. Might overcast the chin a bit, the neck a bit I mean, but we will just see. She was doing, I should keep saying she, Lisa was very carefully doing a 4-inch seam, but my fabric's a bit more fray than that, so I'm gonna just aim for 5. See how we go. Turn it around gradually. It's a little bit trickier to see. Okay. Right, I'm going to lift it and bring it back round. It's a bit tight just where that curve is, so I'm going to try and correct that on the way back. Not sure how curved that is, so I might have to go over it again, but so it's not the best, but I could go over it one more time. I'll have another go on the sewing machine. Right, that's better. Okay, I think that looks a lot better. So then we turn it right side out. But yeah, she basically said kind of roll the seam out. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to add some fray stop just because I can't overcast this bit. Just try and get it on both sides. So I am going to try and balance that on something to let it dry. And I think the next seam is this one. And then I'll come back. So yeah, definitely not a perfect seam by a long shot, but I'm not going to have a perfect bear, it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to put the fray stop on this one again and then leave it to dry. So I have now pinned on the muzzle area. It's a bit tricky because it sort of slips down a bit on the outside, so I need to make sure when I'm doing the overcasting that I am quite careful not to let it slip down too much. I might actually try putting the pins in sideways and just see if that makes any difference. But yeah, I'm going to overcast this bit because I definitely need it to be held by more than just pins. So I have overcast and stitched the muzzle, and I've turned it the right way out and had a quick look. It doesn't look too bad. Hard to know exactly what it's going to look like until it's stuffed. And the nose is going to go over the front there. So then what I need to do is to pin and stitch the backs of the head. So with the ears, I have done the fray stop around the edge. It's actually still quite soft. And I've drawn these marks on so I can do the seam with the seam allowance. So I'm going to start here, do back and forth a bit, go all the way around, same on the other side. Lisa did say you don't have to do twice over the ear, but I might as well. And then decide whether I want to do the overcasting. This is not recommended. She overcasts first, which is, I'm sure, much better. But I find it more difficult to do the stitches and not come over the seam allowance. Okay, so that is the second ear. Slightly close there, but I have gone over it again, so I'm sure that'll be fine. So I have turned the ears inside out. Well, I've stitched the ears, turned them inside out, pinned them, so I just need to stitch across the bottom. I was debating whether to stuff them, but I think they look really good actually as they are, so I don't think I'm going to stuff them. And then this is where I am with the head. So I have overcast. Have I overcast? Yeah, I have. It's not very easy to see, but I've overcast the outside on both of them, and on this side you can see from the top as well, and I tried to work from the top, that I have done the hand stitching around this side, and I need to finish it on this side and then turn it inside out. So I've turned the head the right way out. Looks a bit weird at the moment. I'm hoping it will look better once it's stuffed, because it's quite hard to properly see the seams. So yeah, I'm going to start stuffing, starting with the nose first, try and make it fairly firm. Okay, so I started stuffing the nose, and I've realised that I've got this rough area that's kind of where some of the seam is coming out, and it doesn't look very good, so I'm going to turn it inside out again and go over that stitching, make that stitching a bit stronger. So hopefully that will resolve it, but we will see. I might also just go around the rest of the seams and just check that's not a problem anywhere else as well that I might need to go over, because I don't want to spend ages stuffing it and then find that, you know, it's a problem somewhere else. But as much as I can tell, the rest of the seam seems okay. Pardon the pun. So I have finished stuffing the head. Sorry, the light in here is terrible. It's really dark outside. So you can see, yeah, that I've stuffed the head. It is quite firm, possibly not as firm as how firm Lisa's done it. And I've cut out the shape of the leather piece for the nose. I've just pinned it on. I know I've pinned it on in a different place to what Lisa's done, and I think it's a slightly different size and shape. I was trying to cut it out to right to the edge of the piece, but I made it a bit too big, so I tried to trim it down, so it's probably slightly different. But I think I prefer it where the nose lines up with the seam, and then I've sewn up the seam for the ears, so I've pinned one on, and Lisa pins them on so then she can see where to put the eyes. So I'm going to try and pin the other one on. They do look a bit different. Well, I pinned it on before, so I need to try and go where the seam is and a bit further back than the back seam. This bit's a little bit wobbly, so maybe it's good to cover that up. So I've gone over I like how this one's placed. So I've gone over the seam there, so if I try and place it. Actually, I think I now prefer that ear to this ear, so when we come to sew the ears on, I'll see what I think. So that's the rough placement, and I've got these eyes. I'm not sure, I mean, it's quite difficult to know when you're sort of holding them in front how they're going to look, so it's hard to know whether it's going to look good or not. So I'm going to glue the nose on and do the nose, I think, and then I'll work out the placement for the eyes, make a hole, put them in, and then see what I think before I stitch them, because I can always buy some different eyes. Maybe just plain black would work better, but hard to tell. So we will see. Oh, and the bottom, once I'd stuffed it, I put a disc with the longer bolt, a little bit longer than the other joints, inside, and then I did a running stitch really as tight as I could. I actually did it 3 times with doubled thread, because the first time I just couldn't get it as tight, so I did it another couple of times, and I'm hoping that once it's on the body will be okay. So I've tried to adjust the light so that you can see a little bit better, and I can see a little bit better. So I've done the first stitch, I've knotted it down here, come out. She kind of came out sort of up here, but she was using felt, so I don't know if she made a hole and then it went back into the stuffing. I couldn't really see clearly in the video, but I don't want to make too many holes in this fabric because it frays so much. So anyway, I've done the first stitch, came out here, went up, down in the middle, and then came out just next to it. It's quite difficult to get it in the perfect position, so hopefully that is okay. So I need to make sure my threads aren't twisted, and I think she pulled them individually to get a bit of tension. So then we need to go back in right next to it and come out at this side. This fabric does make it more difficult to see what we're doing. Oops. So I go back in next to it and try and come out the same position the other side of the, oops, way too low down. Okay, where are we? Is that close enough? Yeah, I think that's probably okay. Right, come out that side. These dolly needles are quite tough to get through the fabric. Oh, there we go. Okay, so then I need to make sure it's not twisted. I will lie that next to the other one and pull it through. I do seem to get some stuffing that comes out, so she didn't really mention that, but okay, and back in this side. And then what she did is she came out just underneath the leather on that side, which is, it's kind of aiming the needle is not the easiest. That's going to go through the leather. I think that's okay. I think that's in the right place. Good. I didn't actually have perlé thread, which is what she's using, so I don't know if, you know, if mine's a lot thicker, or it is definitely furrier. But yeah, it's the only sort of thicker black that I had, so I don't really even know what it is. So this is definitely a tricky process, because the obviously the leather, I don't know whether I've got much thicker leather or what really, but it's difficult to get it in exactly the right position. Actually, I think noses do have a little point in the middle anyway, don't they? So, yeah. Not sure if that's what hers look like, but that's what mine's going to look like. The other thing is, with new crafts, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I tend to want to be able to do them perfectly straight away. I don't like to do something and it not come out so good, but just tend to put a lot of pressure on, you know, to make things look really good the first time you do them, and I've been trying not to do that so much with this bear. Probably still have, but oops. Yeah, just let me know in the comments if you do the same thing. His nose is lifting slightly on this side, so, but I'm sure I can stitch it on with the yarn. Oh, Christ. Okay. Oh yeah. Push that. Hopefully it'll reach. Cross your fingers for me. Oh God. Okay, teeth job. God. Okay, definitely don't recommend doing this. Oh, hopefully it's going to be long enough. Okay, should have definitely used a longer dowel needle. Okay, so I've just about managed to get it out. Is that line flat? I think it actually is. I think that's okay. Phew! Right, let's pull this out. We haven't got a lot of thread to do a knot, but just have a look. I think it's going to be okay. I think once I've done this side and they're both pulled in a bit more neatly, I think it'll be okay. I'm going to use plenty of thread next time. Oh heck. Okay, that's not ideal, is it? Somehow I've lost some. I've ripped it off. Oh, Gemma, not ideal. Although, is that too tight? I've tied the knot too tight. It's definitely pulled in, isn't it? I don't know, these things are tricky because you have these problems that they don't actually have on the other videos, so you don't know how to fix them. Okay, so what I've done is I've undone maybe a couple of sets of stitches on each side, and I've put my longer dowel needle in. I cut the knots off, and I'm just trying to make sure these aren't twisted. So I'm going to try line those stitches up again. Basically, I'll probably have stitched the nose like, I don't know, 3 times by the time I finish. But hey ho. Okay, so I've done that stitch over the top of the nose, and I've realised that there is a gap there, so I'm going to need to fill that in. But I've come out where I want the mouth to start, so I'm going to attempt to put the needle through the 3 bits. I don't know how to do that. Maybe if I do it this way. Underneath the 3, yeah. It's not coming all the way down. Let's just try it. I'm not sure if that's going to work. See, that's too, I think that's too high up. Change of plan. Good. Right, so maybe I'll just go through the 1 then. Though that's not going to be as strong. Do you know what? I'm just going to go in as a stitch. But do I want to... I wonder if I want to do a bit of a curve. She did a bit of a curve, and I don't know how she got it to stay there. But I might do a bit of a curve and just do a tiny weeny stitch to hold it, because I think that looks quite nice. Do I want to do it curved? Curved or straight? Slightly curved. Yeah, maybe like that. Okay. So, right, and then we're going to come back up. And then down over the nose, this in the right place. So slightly further back than the nose and a bit higher than the chin. So slightly further back than the nose, maybe not quite as far back. And maybe a centimetre up from the chin, is that right? Maybe slightly higher than. I think that's about right. Okay, so then it's actually getting the needle near that spot. It's pretty much done it. Let's just put a pin back in. We can. work out. Does that look okay? Perfect. Right, and then we'll do a gentle knot. Tight knot, but not tight thread. Okay, good. That looks good. Oh, that's about as close as I can get. Okay, so I'm trying to work out whether I like these eyes. I think I do. I mean, they're going to be sunken more. I had a look at the order for these ones, and they're actually 16mm rather than 12 to 14, so I think they are just too big, really. So I've ordered some size 12 in a different colour, so we'll see what they're like. And in Lisa's video, she added shading to the face, and I really wanted to do that, but I didn't want to use chalk because I didn't want it to rub off. I just didn't like the idea of that. And I thought about the pens. I've got some alcohol markers and I tried them out. And they look good, but they smelt quite strongly of alcohol. Now, I should have waited until the next day because actually they don't at all now. That would have been much easier. So I should have done that. But instead what I did is use these Inktense Derwent Inktense blocks and a water brush. And I painted it on and then used some just plain water to kind of spread it out a bit. And I do like the look. I'm going to add a bit more around the eyes. I'm going to wait till I've got the new eyes so that I can tell how much shading's needed. I've put a bit around the ears, and I've also put a little bit around the feet. Kind of like the idea of the paw colour kind of fading out, and it's just looking a bit grungier. The new eyes for my bear have arrived. So I found on eBay some charcoal coloured ones. Oops. Thought they'd be a better colour and went for size 12 instead. I kind of wish I'd gone for size 14 really, but I think these ones are nice. Also, I've made the hole a bit wider and put a little bit of fray stop around the edge. But I think that's going to be my bear's new face. So the next step I'm going to do is to sew the eyes in. So I'm going to follow the instructions. You need to hold them quite carefully so that they are recessed a bit. So I will show you what that looks like once it's done. Okay, so I've attempted to put the eyes in. Basically, the instructions are to do a four kind of stranded yarn or thread through the eye, the I don't know what that's called, shank, well, whatever that is, the loop in the eye, to put 4 strands through, and then you thread your needle through, you come out at the back near the bottom, and then you tie a knot just so you can identify which yarn is which thread is which. And then you do the same with the other eye, and you're supposed to come out the same hole, push them in and tie it really tight in a knot together through the same hole, and then you cut the end of the thread, and the knot and the yarn kind of up to the knot disappears into the head nice and neat, and leaves you with these slightly recessed eyes. But you can probably see here I've put a bit of fray stop on. I just couldn't get the right hole. Now I haven't got the best eyesight, so I couldn't see very well, but the needle bends a bit inside the bear, so it's really difficult to get it through the same spot. And the eyes weren't really recessed enough. I don't think the thread was going to disappear back inside the head, so I just had this random knot with yarn hanging out, and the eyes weren't really recessed enough, so I thought, well, that's not going to work. So I watched Lisa's other video on her other memory bear, and what I've done is I've kind of stitched between the eyes, between the eye holes, and you can see that there it's created this sort of recess. But to start with, it had this pull. It basically looked like he'd had very bad plastic surgery, and he'd got this sort of crease in the fabric. That's probably because I haven't stuffed him as much as Lisa did with hers. But I've basically cut some of the back and forth threads a bit, which is quite difficult. I had to sort of fish them out using the needle. And it's loosened it a little bit, so I think that's enough. You can't really see the lines anymore. So in terms of how am I actually going to put the eyes in, a friend of mine was like, just glue them in, which, yeah, I could do, but it seems a shame to have stitched everything and then glue the eyes in. Although it probably would work. But I want them a little bit more recessed. So I think what I'm going to do, or attempt to do, is I've got sort of two main options. I could either try and get the where I come out to come much lower and tie a knot here. I could sort of cross them over so that you still get the same effect. So that's a possibility. The other possibility is to make a hole to start with in a different place to where I did before. Make it slightly bigger with the awl, and then put thread in from this side out each eye hole, tie it to the yarn that I'm going to use for the eyes, and then pull them both through so they're definitely coming out of the same hole. So I think I might try that first, and then if that doesn't work, go for the knots at the bottom. But I would like to try not to ruin the head at this late stage if I can. I think it's going to break. Okay, I'm not sure this is going to work. Oh, might do. It's come through somewhere, but okay, I'm not sure if it is going to work. What a shame. Very nearly worked. Okay. Let's just make that hole a bit bigger and we'll have another attempt at doing it the way she suggested. Okay, so we've got one through the right hole. I'll make that hole a bit bigger. And put him back in. Yes, I think that might be it. Sort of hoping that's it. Right, is that the same hole? I think it is. Okay. So, we need them to pull in a bit. Right, well, let's just have a go then. We'll do one side of the knot and then we'll see what it looks like. Right, I've got these mixed up. Where's the knot? That'll help me separate them. So, should be okay. So we'll try it tighter. Try and get those eyes recessed a bit more. I think that looks nice. So we'll do another couple of knots and then we'll trim the ends and see if it works. I just have a bad feeling it's not going to work. We'll see. Maybe I have to poke them in with a tool of some description. Okay, they're not still there. So if I jam them in with the eye end of the needle, it's not going in, is it? I don't know. Now what though, because I can't really have a random hole on the back. Looks good on the front. So I had a good think about how to solve the issue about the dent in the back of the bear's head, and this is what I decided to do to solve the issue. So I had this very funky fabric that came from an old coat, cut out a square of it, frayed the edges deliberately, then I added a little bit of stuffing and pinned it on, and then I did some small black stitches in there. Then I added some floss, embroidery floss lines, kind of borrow type style, coming off the patch, and I did that in black and white. And then I've added some more small black stitches and some more small white stitches, mostly on the fraying edges to stop them from coming apart really. And I think what I'm going to do is do the same thing maybe on his tummy, have some sort of patch to kind of tie things in together. I'm not sure quite where yet, but that does mean that the head is finished. I've kind of tidied up some of the ends a little bit so that I can attach the head. The other thing that I've done is I've got an old sock and some aquarium gravel, which is one of the things that I know Lisa uses inside her bears. I had to rinse it and dry it. I'm not sure how much you need. I've got kind of that much at the minute. Maybe that's heavy enough. Maybe you don't need that much. So maybe I'll stuff the bear a little bit, put that inside and see what I think before I add any more. So let's have a go. And I probably should, yeah. So I need to put it through this hole. I have put fray stop on the hole. I'm hoping that it doesn't catch too much as it turns. So put that on the hole. And then on the inside, put the disc, I'm going to put the smooth side down. Okay, make sure I haven't got any fabric trapped, that feels okay. And then I want to put the washer on first, and then add the nut. So I'll finger tighten it first, and I'm just going to check the fabric's not kind of caught up. Okay. Need to push it down quite hard. Finger tighten it a bit more. Double check the fabric. Okay, so there is a bit of, to stretch the fabric out a bit. Not really sure how it's supposed to look, so I'm going to be a bit careful with this. So I don't want it to look really weird. Try and get that crease out. It is a bit difficult to know really what's a normal sized crease and what's too much of a crease. Okay, so I have stuffed the bear. He's quite squishy, well, firmish, but still a little bit of softness there. If you squeeze really hard, you can feel the aquarium gravel, so it makes him quite weighty, which is nice. I've stitched up the back. Again, not perfect, but I think it looks okay. This patch, I've just stitched it on so far. This patch isn't covering up anything. I just thought it would be quite nice to have more than one patch. So I need to just do the borrow stitching. So this is the finished bear. I'm going to show a few close-ups of him. So this is the patch that I've done on his belly with the same borrow type stitching that I did before. I'm quite pleased with how that one came out. Some of the stitches are a bit wonky, but hey, as we've said all the way along, he is a little bit of a wonky bear. Quite pleased with how his feet came out. They look fairly neat. And this is a close-up of his face. And I think he's got quite a lot of character in his eyes, so I'm quite pleased with how that came out. So this has been a really big learning curve, and I think I'm going to do a separate video on, you know, some of the things that I learnt when making this bear, because it was a totally new experience for me. So the last thing is to name him. So let me know down in the comments what you think I should call him. At the moment, the names on the table are either Bernard, or Barnaby, or Bartholomew.